Here's the funny thing about losing your soul. It happens somewhere between your morning coffee and your evening YouTube or Netflix binge, and you don't even notice it. One day you're just sitting there, probably in some ergonomically correct chair that's supposedly fixing your posture, while simultaneously fucking up your spine in some new and exciting way, when it hits you. You've become exactly what Jung warned us about in Liber Novus. I had to accept that what I had previously called my soul was not at all my soul, but a dead system. You see, our primate brains, with their dopamine-driven reward circuits and prefrontal cortex, constantly trying to maintain social status through Instagram likes, have created the perfect conditions for what I call soul amnesia. It's like we've all been infected by this virus of modernity that makes us forget we even have souls in the first place. Kierkegaard saw this coming with the precision of an existential sniper. He writes in The Sickness unto Death, "The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. No other loss can occur so quietly. Any other loss, an arm, a leg, $5, a wife, etc., is sure to be noticed." Imagine your soul suddenly asking you, "Remember me, asshole? Who said that? Oh, now you want to talk, after years of drowning me out with podcasts and productivity apps?" This cosmic joke gets even better when you realize that Nietzsche called it out with all the subtlety of a philosophical sledgehammer in The Gay Science. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was the holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? But here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying in that special way that makes your neurons do the evolutionary cha-cha. The recognition of this loss isn't some mundane philosophical meandering, but a biological imperative screaming through your synapses. As Dostoevsky observed in Notes from Underground, "The more conscious I was of goodness, and of all that was sublime and beautiful, the more deeply I sank into my mire, and the more ready I was to sink in it altogether." And you know what the real joke is? This recognition, this moment of, oh shit, where did I put my soul? It's actually the beginning of salvation. It's like when a monkey in the lab suddenly realizes it's in a lab. That meta-awareness, as Kierkegaard notes in Either Or, is the first step toward authenticity. And this is the simple truth, that to live is to feel oneself lost. He who accepts it has already begun to find himself, to be on firm ground. But let's be honest, and this is the part they don't put in the spiritual self-help books. This recognition feels less like an enlightening moment of self-discovery, and more like realizing you've been walking around with cosmic toilet paper stuck to your existential shoe. It's embarrassing, it's humbling, and it's absolutely necessary. What happens next? Well, that's where things get really weird, because once you realize you've lost your soul, you have to go looking for it. And unlike your car keys, you can't just retrace your steps or check between the couch cushions. No, this search takes you straight into what Jung called the depths. And trust me, it's not called the depths because it's shallow and well lit. Ready for the real conversation now? Do I have a choice? You always did. That's what makes this so tragically hilarious. So you've realized you've lost your soul. Congratulations. You've just qualified for what Jung calls the worst self-help program ever. A descent into the abyss. No refunds, no safe words, no TripAdvisor reviews. In the Red Book, Jung describes this charming experience with all the enthusiasm of someone documenting their own psychological freefall. I see a grey rock face along which I sink into great depths. Shadows sweep over me. I'm seized by fear, but I know I must go in. Now you might be thinking, maybe I'll just skip the whole depths thing and watch some more Netflix instead. But the fact is that once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Your brain's default mode network, that neurological group chat that never shuts up, keeps pinging you with existential notifications. Nietzsche, that mad prophet who went all in on this journey, warns us in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Superman. A rope over an abyss, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. You see your amygdala, that ancient lizard bouncer in the nightclub of your brain, is freaking out because you're finally asking the questions it's been trying to avoid since you learned to tie your shoes. What am I? A cosmic accident with anxiety? No, seriously, what am I? A primate with a credit score and a ChatGPT subscription? Heidegger, being German and therefore contractually obligated to make everything sound more serious, describes this state in Being and Time. Anxiety makes manifest the nothing. We hover in anxiety. More precisely, anxiety leaves us hanging because it induces the slipping away of beings as a whole. This is where your brain's threat detection system goes into overdrive. As Sapolsky would tell you, your glucocorticoid levels are doing the mambo with your hippocampal neurons, and your prefrontal cortex is basically sitting in the corner wearing a dunce cap. Dostoevsky, who knew a thing or two about staring into abysses, writes in The Brothers Karamazov, "Here the devil is struggling with God, and the battlefield is the human heart." Though, let's be honest, it feels less like an epic battlefield and more like a cosmic mosh pit where meaning and meaninglessness are stage diving into each other. The real fun starts when you realize that this descent isn't optional. Jung lays it out in the Red Book with all the bedside manner of a medieval surgeon. The depths want to keep you. They have not returned very many up to now. Your ego needs rest. Can't we just do some yoga and call it a day? Your soul wants revolution. Sure, and while we're at it, why don't we just fix global warming with a desk fan? The ego is reactive. I feel attacked. The soul is eternal. You haven't even begun to feel attacked yet, sunshine. This is where Kierkegaard's concept of anxiety gets real cozy with your central nervous system. In the concept of anxiety, he drops this banger. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, which emerges when the spirit wants to posit the synthesis and freedom looks down into its own possibility. Translation: you're realizing you've been the abyss all along. Plot twist, worthy of M. Night Shyamalan, except this one actually makes sense. But here's the thing about the descent. It's about going down while maintaining enough awareness to document the fall, like a war correspondent reporting from inside your own psychological apocalypse. As Jung notes, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. So buckle up, Buttercup. This ride's about to get weird and the only way out is through. How deep does it go? All the way down. That's not very helpful. Neither is asking how deep infinity is, but here we are. Remember that scene in every horror movie where someone hears a voice calling from the basement and you're screaming at the screen, "Don't go down there, you idiot"? Well, welcome to the spiritual equivalent. Except this time that voice is coming from inside your own psyche. And spoiler alert, you absolutely have to go down there. Jung captures this moment in the Red Book with all the drama of a cosmic soap opera. "My soul, where are you? Do you hear me? I speak, I call you. Are you there? I have returned, I am here again. I have shaken the dust of all the lands from my feet, and I have come to you. I am with you." It's like the universe's most intense game of Marco Polo, except Marco is your ego and Polo is the collective unconscious having an existential laugh at your expense. Plato knew this call well. In the Republic he tells us, "The soul of every man does possess the power of learning the truth and the organ to see it with." Though he conveniently leaves out the part where your organ of truth has been atrophying while you've been binge-watching YouTube. Your soul's response? Pure sass with a side of transcendental truth. Who gives you thoughts and words? Do you make them? Are you not my serf, a recipient who lies at my door and picks up my arms? And your ego, that overconfident bouncer at the club of consciousness, tries to play it cool. But could I wallow in raging nonsense and hatch absurdity and perverse monotony? To which the soul, channeling every disappointed parent ever, replies, "Your words are lies to you, not me." Ouch. As Nietzsche would say in Beyond Good and Evil, in all desire to know there is already a drop of cruelty. But this isn't just any cruelty. This is premium, artisanal, small batch cosmic cruelty with a hint of vanilla and existential dread. This call isn't coming from some external divine hotline. As Joseph Campbell reminds us, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Truth is, he forgot to mention that the cave is actually your own mind, and it's less like a treasure hunt and more like an archaeological dig through layers of psychological garbage you've been hoarding since kindergarten. Your neurons are firing like it's the 4th of July in your limbic system. Is this what enlightenment feels like? No, that's just your existential panic having a rave with your survival instincts. Then what's that light I'm seeing? Probably just your phone screen. Put it down and pay attention. This is where things get quantum weird. Jung tells us, your light is not of this world. And you're sitting there thinking, great, not only am I hearing voices, but now I'm apparently some kind of metaphysical lighthouse. But the call you're hearing is the voice of what Jung called the self, that mysterious center of your psyche that's been patiently waiting for you to stop scrolling through Instagram long enough to notice it exists. So when your soul asks, should it not exist because you know nothing of it? The only honest answer is, well, shit. Get ready for the next level of this game. The tutorial is over and the real boss battles are about to begin. And unlike your video games, there's no cheat code for individuation. All right, so you've answered the call. Now comes the fun part, and by fun I mean the kind of fun that makes root canals look like a spa day. Welcome to the confrontation with your shadow, where all those parts of yourself you've been pretending don't exist are having a block party in your unconscious mind. Jung, ever the optimist, describes this cheery encounter in the Red Book. I am the black iron, the dark rock. I am doomed to minerality, to non-life. That is my darkness. I have accepted everything beyond life. With this, I have become hard and black, metal and stone. Your shadow greets you like an old friend who knows all your embarrassing stories and can't wait to tell them. Remember that time you pretended to be deep by quoting Rumi on Instagram? Can we not? Oh, we absolutely can. We're just getting started. Nietzsche, who basically turned psychological horror into an art form, warns in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, one should hear the sound of one's own name for the last time. From the deepest dream I shall be awakened by my own cry. Yeah, thanks Friedrich, super helpful. This is where your brain's executive functions start sending out resumes for a new job. As Sapolsky would explain, your anterior cingulate cortex is literally trying to file for divorce from your amygdala, while your hippocampus is in the corner stress-eating neurotransmitters. Dostoevsky, who practically had a PhD in suffering, nails it in Notes from Underground. I swear to you, gentlemen, that to be overly conscious is a disease, a real thorough sickness. Though in this case, it's less like a disease and more like your psyche decided to host an intervention for itself. The shadow doesn't just show you your dark side, it shows you all the ways you've been pretending to be light. Do you call light what we men call the worst darkness? I was trying to be optimistic. How's that working out for your authenticity? I'd like to speak to the manager of this psychological process. This is where Jung drops the real bomb. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, or as your shadow might put it. Time to stop pretending those spiritual bypassing workshops are going to fix what only facing your own darkness can heal. Your ego, still thinking it's in charge, cute, tries to negotiate. Can't we just focus on the positive? Your shadow barely containing its laughter. Sure, just like you can fight gravity by thinking happy thoughts. Kierkegaard, who understood anxiety better than your therapist, puts it this way. The self is a relation which relates itself to itself in the relationship to itself, which is basically philosophical speak for, it's you all the way down, buddy. This confrontation isn't a psychological ghost story. It is where the rubber meets the road. Or as Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this is one of the few things he and Siggy still agreed on. So here you are, face to face with everything you've been running from, and plot twist, it's all you. Every bit of it, the good, the bad, the Instagram filters, the existential dread, the Rasta dreads, everything, it's all coming from inside the house. Ready to see what you're really made of? Do I have a choice? You always did. You just kept choosing to masturbate. That's a low blow. Truth usually is. So you've met your shadow and surprise. It turns out you're not exactly the enlightened sage you pretended to be in your meditation app bio. Now comes the really trippy part. Integration. Think of it as trying to get your internal Batman and Joker to not just stop fighting, but actually start a productive business partnership. Jung, master of the psychological plot twist, describes this process in the Red Book. The supreme meaning is great and small. It is as wide as the space of the starry heaven and as narrow as the cell of the living body. Translation: everything you are and everything you're not are about to have the universe's most awkward family reunion. Your psyche at this point is basically running its own version of a reality TV show. Today on Keeping Up with the Complexes. Can we not turn this into entertainment? Too late, your ego's already picked out its costume. Heraclitus, that old fire-loving philosopher, saw this coming when he said, "The way up and the way down are one and the same," though he forgot to mention that up and down are having an identity crisis, while your consciousness tries to play marriage counselor. This is where your neurons are practically doing quantum physics. As Sapolsky would tell you, your brain is simultaneously activating opposing neural networks while your corpus callosum is desperately trying to remember if it signed up for this kind of psychological acrobatics. The opposites start their dance. Light says, "I am truth." Shadow responds, "I am also truth." Your ego watching from the sidelines. "This is giving me a headache." The self. That's the point. Nietzsche, who probably needed a hug, gives us this gem from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. One should hear the sound of one's own name for the last time. From the deepest dream I shall be wakened by my own cry. Which is basically what happens when you realize you're both the dreamer and the alarm clock. Jung lays it out with all the gentleness of a psychological sledgehammer. The God holds the separate principles in his power. He unites them. God develops through the union of the principles in us. He is their union. Your various parts react predictably. Ego, can we get this in simple terms? Shadow, simple is what got us into this mess. Soul, both of you shut up and watch. Self, finally someone's getting it. The real fun starts when you realize that integration isn't about choosing sides. It's about becoming the space where all sides exist simultaneously, like quantum superposition, but for your psychological states, Schrödinger's personality, if you will. Here's where things get really meta. The integration process itself integrates. Am I integrating or being integrated? Yes, that's not an answer. It's the only answer you're going to get. Think of it like this. You're realizing you're the puzzle, the pieces, and the act of puzzling itself. As Jung notes, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Except in this case, all the personalities are you. The cosmic irony. This integration feels less like achieving enlightenment and more like hosting a dinner party where all your internal contradictions not only show up uninvited, but decide to move in permanently. So when does it end? End? Oh dear. It's not a destination, it's an eternal ballet. Hope you brought comfortable shoes. Get ready for the ultimate plot twist. The integration never stops. It's a software update that keeps adding new features to your psyche. Except every feature is something you thought you'd successfully repressed. Is this what wholeness feels like? No, this is what wholeness feels like, watching itself feel like wholeness. I need a drink. That's also wholeness. So here you are, after all that psychological spelunking, ready to return to the surface world. Except return is kind of a misleading term. It's more like trying to fit your newly expanded consciousness back into your regular life, like stuffing a king-size comforter into a twin-size duvet cover. Jung, always ready with the cosmic perspective, tells us in the Red Book, "The way of life writhes like the serpent from right to left and from left to right, from thinking to pleasure and from pleasure to thinking." Which is basically his fancy way of saying, congratulations, you're now a conscious pretzel. Your transformed psyche trying to engage with mundane reality. So, I still have to do my taxes? Yes, but now you understand they're a symbolic representation of your material covenant with the collective. That doesn't make them any easier to file. No, but it makes them more meaningful. I'd prefer easier. Of course you would. That's why we had to go through all this in the first place. Shut it. Nietzsche, who knew a thing or two about coming back from the abyss, tells us, become who you are. Though he conveniently leaves out the part where the who you are turns out to be permanently weird, but in a surprisingly functional way. This is where your neuroplasticity really shows off. As Sapolsky would explain, your brain has literally rewired itself to accommodate this new level of consciousness, like a smartphone that's somehow learned to run quantum computing algorithms, while still being used to scroll through TikTok. The real challenge? Trying to explain to your friends why you're different. You seem different. I integrated my shadow. Is that like a new CrossFit thing? Something like that. Remember how Campbell talked about the hero's journey? Well, he forgot to mention the part where the hero comes back and still has to deal with rush hour traffic. As he actually wrote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." But he never mentioned how awkward it is to carry that treasure through the self-checkout line at Walmart. Your transformed consciousness now has to navigate daily life. I am one with the universe. Sir, this is a Wendy's? The universe includes Wendy's. Please just order or move to the next window. But he will never know the integration never actually ends. You're permanently caught in this invincible fire and movement between the profound and the mundane, like some kind of existential DJ mixing the music of the spheres with your grocery shopping list. How do I maintain this awareness in everyday life? The same way you maintain anything: practice, patience, and a really good sense of humor. That's it. That's everything. Welcome to your new normal, where transcendence and trash day somehow coexist. Your consciousness has expanded, but your garbage still needs to be taken out. The miracle isn't that you've changed everything, it's that you can now find the sacred in the profane, the profound in the ordinary, and occasionally enlightenment in the frozen foods aisle. So this is who I really am. No, this is who you really are becoming. There's more. There's always more. That's kind of the whole point. Remember, the journey never really ends. It just gets weirder and more interesting. And somewhere between the sacred and the profane, between the profound and the ridiculous, you might just find what you were looking for all along. Yourself in all your contradictory, beautiful mess of a glory. Is this the end? End. Oh, honey, this is just the beginning. Of what? Everything.